Hello, this is my Zeitgeist project on the years 450 through 1300. I have divided this era into three periods, which I call the Dark Ages, the Medieval Era, and the Rise and Fall of the Church. The Dark Ages were a time when people lived in fear of being attacked, so they lived in rural areas instead of towns. Literacy decreased and common language is all but lost. Trade and cities were devastated. Instead of having a central power, personal ties meant more, which basically means that if you weren't a farmer, you were part of something akin to a tribe or a clan. The only thing that survived Rome's fall was the church. At this time, the Church of Rome started sending missionaries to Ireland, which included St. Patrick, converting armies and kings like Clovis, who was a Frankish king, and the creation of monasteries, which are more or less churches with monks who swore to poverty, chastity, and obedience. Also, they never got to leave. At this time, Gregory I expanded the power of the Pope, which became important later on. The basic premise of the medieval time was feudalism. Feudalism was when a king divided up his land and gave it to their vassals, who swore loyalty to him and gave a percent of their profits on said land. But suppose a vassal didn't want to work the land himself. He could, and probably would, divide it up again and become lord of it, and partition it off to several other different vassals. This chain of lords and vassals usually ended with a knight who owned a manor or estate. Medieval times were also the rejuvenation of towns. Since farming techniques improved, it allowed people to work on non-food related jobs, which was a previous project, so I won't go over that. Anyway, since people could now work outside the food industry, they started guilds, crafts, and fairs. Guilds were groups of people who all had the same job, such as a baker or a cobbler, which standardized prices and quality so there wasn't competition or substandard merchandise. Fairs were sort of like markets where everybody got together and sold stuff to each other. The third section is the rise and fall of the church. During this time, the church was growing ever stronger, intentionally. I can understand why simony, the buying and selling of church offices, and why they would want to end that, but the decision to end lay investiture, which meant the appointment of a cardinal by bishop or someone other than a church leader, seems a bit of a power play. Like saying, only we get to choose who leads us and who sets our rules, by the emperor. And on the subject of setting rules, the church basically had control of the law system. This was canon law, which is essentially an extra set of rules set by the church, in addition to common law, the rules and regulations set by the government. The fall of the church came when the then pope thought it was a good idea to take back the ancient lands by force. So they massacred their way right into Jerusalem multiple times, after which people lost faith in the church, so they left. The modern item that reflects the spirit of the time is a quote from the X-Men movie Last Stand. The quote is from Charles Xavier, where he says, "When an individual acquires great power, the use or misuse of that power is everything. Will it be used for the greater good, or will it be used for personal or destructive ends?" This is relevant to the time period because it's an analogy for the church. At this era, the church was using its acquired power to make itself more powerful, and incited the Crusades, the biggest holy waste of human life ever. This might not be a perfect analogy, because in the quote it specifies an individual, and in this case it is more about several bad decisions made by multiple popes over this entire era. Anyway, that is my screencast on the Zeitgeist of the years 450 through 1300. I got all the pictures from Google Images, except for the tech avatars I created. Thank you.